Hey everyone, welcome back to another Redstone video. Today I bring you my shulker box brewery system, which is relatively compact and modular. I've also got a system that requires no shulker boxes at all and runs in the same way. So I'll run through both of the designs with you. But before we get started, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you enjoy this video, check out some of my other tutorials. And I've also got a technical let's play series you might be interested in. But without further ado, let's get started. Now, I do want to mention one thing before we do get started. I would suggest that you do end up watching this whole video before you head to the world download. There's probably some details in here that you might find relevant and that you might need to get things started. So make sure you watch the whole thing. Another thing that I think that might be worth mentioning is that you might see a couple potions from here that are missing. And those two potions are the Turtlemaster potion and the splash potion of weakness. Now, the reason for those is because basically the splash potion of weakness is generally a potion that you would have really only used for villager curing. So I would advise that you use the singular auto brewer that's quite popularized by Impulse. That one's probably best to keep near your curing station and just have refueling that. And another reason is that most of this design runs off of pre-brewed awkward potions and they don't actually match together. The other thing is with the Turtlemaster potion, because it's non-stackable, it doesn't really run into the system how I would need it to, due to the fact that this is all picked up by a hopper minecart, and for that reason you can't use the Turtlemaster potion. But let's be honest, you probably won't miss all that much because, you know, kind of sucks. But anyway, let's get into the details of this brewery. Alright, so as you probably figured out from the opening cinematic of this video, the idea behind this system is pretty straightforward. You have all the potions that you would want to brew along this side over here, and then you have the following modifiers on this side. So, for example, if I wanted to have a water breathing potion, you would hit the note block just behind the item frame, and then that would indicate that this is now on and this is the potion that you're going to be brewing. And then obviously with a water breathing potion, you can't add glowstone because there's no second stage. You can, however, add extra time to the water breathing, and you can also make it a splash potion as well. So you can see here, this is the potion that you've decided to brew. Now, the reason I put these indicator lamps in here is so you know that that's the ones that you have selected. You can, however, if you decide, you know what, I don't want water breathing, I actually want to make a fire resistance potion, you can turn that off and switch on the fire breathing instead. This is just a good way for you to make sure you realize which one you've switched on and which ones aren't on. And the same goes for the modifiers. You can go ahead and switch those off again if you don't want any of those. Unfortunately, the system doesn't actually lock up when you choose a modifier that doesn't match up with the potion. So what I would advise that you do is that you have a bunch of item frames with the glowstone item that shows what does work with glowstone, and then have the same for redstone that shows what does work for redstone. That's kind of what I have planned for my let's play series, just to give me an idea so I don't need to keep looking up on the internet at any point. Just gives you a better indicator on that side. I did also mention earlier on that this system is modular, and by that what I mean is that if, for example, you decide that you don't want to have glowstone and instead you'd rather have the dragon's breath to make lingering potions, for example, and the same goes for redstone, which I wouldn't really understand why you would do. That's probably the best modifier out of all of them. What you could do, for example, is shift over the redstone and the gunpowder onto this side. So you'd put redstone here and gunpowder here, and then you could add the dragon's breath potions into this section. But otherwise, if you wanted, you could get rid of redstone, put gunpowder here, and again add the dragon's breath at the end over here. Personally, I don't really see huge points in having lingering potions. They don't really add too much to the potion effects or anything like that, besides the fact that they just kind of stick around for a bit. So personally speaking, I think this would be the layout that you would want for the system. I've also gone ahead and added on this side the refueling for nether wart, glass bottles, and blaze powder. And then you've also got a return station for all the shulker boxes of the empty items that you use. So in here you have indicator lamps. When you start running low on the nether wart boxes or the glass bottles or the gunpowder, these lights will go off. Then you can just go ahead and chuck shulker boxes of the items into the system, and that will refuel the system from there. As for the returning of shulker boxes, so you've got the return for empty shulker boxes there. However, when you get return potions on this side, what I would advise obviously is that you keep the return chest or the shulker boxes that are used for returning your items. Make sure you keep that well stocked up. You can just chuck them all in here and it'll be easy to do so. Okay, so just to run through some of the details of the redstone running on behind here. Nothing too complicated, mostly just a bunch of timers running at the right time, a few redstone blocks locking up a couple hoppers to make sure things are running in the right direction. But ultimately, all that's happening is you have a self-brewing station that brews a bunch of awkward potions, and they are stocked up in the system. They're distributed into this chest minecart at the back, and that is basically distributed into these chests or into these brewers in the back. This basically happens every single time that we run the system. So in fact, let's go ahead and brew something so we can get a better idea of it. So let's go ahead and choose let's do a stage 2 healing. We'll leave out the splash for this time. So I hit the button. The items are dropped out onto these webs and are picked up by this minecart. They are distributed along the hopper line. They'll be distributed, and then eventually this block will be removed so it can go back to its original place right there. That gives it enough time, so if you choose enough modifiers, it has a lot of space to actually put the items into the system. In the same time, you saw that this hopper minecart went into the system and filled up the bottles here. And so all that's happening now is we're brewing an instant health potion, which is being done. So we've done the healing potion itself, and now it's going ahead and adding in the modifiers. And then what's going to happen is as soon as the potions are done, what we should see is that the redstone torches will eventually turn off, which they just did there, which then allows all the potions to be popped into the shulker box. And eventually we're going to see the shulker box will break. There we go, shulker box is broken. That's then collected into this system here, and that will then eventually end up going up to the top. And then we receive our shulker box with stage 2 healing potions on the side. Usually what should happen is that at this point you should be good to brew your second station of potions. So these lights and indicators basically stay on until the potions are all done. At that point you should be good to go. I would advise that you don't do too many potions one after another, because the awkward potions still need to refuel, but generally speaking you should be just fine. There's usually quite a bit of a stock up beforehand that shows that you don't need to worry too much about it, but sometimes it can be a little bit behind, so just keep that in mind. But other than that, you should be good to do at least 10 different potions at one time. A bulk of all the stuff that you see here as well, obviously I've added composters just to reduce hopper lag. I do want to mention as well, a lot of this stuff isn't really necessary. You don't have to have hoppers on top of here. You can spit this out into water streams and have them popped into the hoppers once they get to the end. And that works for pretty much all of these feeding lines, because these are all just for putting in the shulker boxes. Everything else is pretty much running off of hoppers that you do need. So here's a little bit of an interesting one that might be relevant. So in order to make sure you didn't have to auto refuel the blaze powder, you can see there's quite a few stages of hoppers here. So what you can do, if you don't have a lot of blaze powder and you don't want to refuel the whole system, you can actually put just filler items in all of these last slots here. So in both of these ones you could put like maybe, you know, non-stackable items, maybe even like armor. You could even put like stacks of stone in here. Anything that basically doesn't actually feed into a brewer should all work as filler items. But honestly speaking, if you're building this, I would imagine you probably have enough blaze powder, but just again, if you need to, you can fill them with filler items. And essentially it's just a way for us to get enough of the blaze powder to be automatically refueled. It was the only way to actually get it in there without actually having you know, certain things not working the way it should do. Okay, so I think I've run through pretty much everything with you that you would need to know. The only thing I would mention is that when you're down the back over here, once you set this up, you're going to need to get the auto brewer for the awkward potions running. So they would actually initially sit in the position that you see here, and then all you'll need to do is flick one of these timings or add some bottles into here, and that should get things started up for you. Once that starts filling up the system, your storage for them will basically fill up, which would be all of these hoppers down here. This indicator will then realize that it no longer needs any more awkward potions, and it will turn the system off. So actually all you would actually need to do is put the observer, start it off here, just give it some sort of some way of starting it up. So maybe just put a note block or whatever, a block in front of it. That will flick upwards and that will start brewing, and then that should get you started. I do want to mention one last thing though before we wrap up on this side, and that is that when it comes to refueling these items, there's no way to reload shulker boxes in at a time. So you would basically have to fill these shulker boxes up with the items that you see that are indicated here. So as long as you've filled up all of these items, you should be good. You can see there's actually three potions that require you to fill up the spider eyes, or sorry, no, the fermented spider eye. So make sure you fill up all of them individually. They don't share any potions. They'll need to be they'll need their own one. But again, they're individual indicators for that potion anyway. I don't see auto refueling for shulker boxes on this side being much of an issue, mainly because a shulker box of these items should net you, I think, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these potions. So I don't imagine you'll ever really need to be refueling these boxes all that often. So I never really ever saw that to be an issue. I would imagine that you're not going to be using the system enough for that to be something, a feature that you would care too much about. And in order for me to add that system, it would have taken away a lot from the system. So ultimately it was just kind of a bit of a write-off. Other than that, I don't think there's really too much else for me to tell you. I would advise that if you have any questions, to potentially leave some comments in the comment section down below. However, if you have anything a little bit more complicated that you think wouldn't work in the comment section, I do also have a Discord, which I'm going to leave in the description down below, along with a world download, along with my Twitch channel and all that kind of stuff. Make sure you check all that out. But the Discord is probably the best place for you to hit me up with any questions, and I'm usually available to answer most questions on the Discord, and it makes it easier to share screenshots and stuff like that as well. So probably best that you do that. Okay, so just before we end, let's go have a quick look at the slightly cheaper non-shulker box version. Both of these will be in the world download together, so you can decide what you'd actually end up choosing. The only real difference between these is obviously, number one, if you want to refuel the nether wart, the glass bottles and the blaze powder, you would have to do so using these double chests. You can obviously add hopper lines in. You can figure out how you want to add the hopper lines in yourself, so you can make sure that they're always refueled without actually having to go to the back and refueling them. And the other thing is, instead of having a return of a shulker box for all of your items, you're instead going to have it come through on a minecart, which we can do a quick show on. Actually, I'm going to preface one more thing before we do that, which is that we don't have space for the shulker boxes to be refueled on this side for using this system. So instead, you just fill up the hoppers. Oops, that shouldn't be in there. But you can just fill up these hoppers with these items, and keep in mind there's still a dropper in the back which holds 9 stacks along with these 5 stacks here. And I imagine if you're using this system, you wouldn't worry too much about having a huge amount of them. However, I have added a section here where you can just keep these items up here, so it's easy for you to refuel manually yourself. Everything else still pretty much works the same, and I'll show you how this system works with a little tick warp. So let's go for a regeneration potion. I think regeneration works on time, so we'll hit a regeneration potion. We'll get that started. Now these turn off straight away just to make things a little bit easier. It's a little bit cheaper to do things this way. Let's do a quick tick warp. Oops. Do a quick tick warp to that time, and you can see, get off the tick warp, the chest is now here with all your regeneration potions, and we can go ahead and empty those out, and then we can return the minecart back to where it should be. You could actually optionally add a hopper underneath this powered rail with a bunch of chests and stuff attached to it. That way you don't need to refuel the thing yourself, or empty the thing yourself, should I say. That would be just going into the chest, and then once that's empty, you could hit the button to return that back to its bit as well. You can actually see that the design over here kind of indicates how big the actual thing really is. Obviously that one has a lot more stuff going on because of the extensions, but generally speaking, it's quite a compact system to get you 27 potions at a time. And I would advise that you remember that if you're going to be wanting them to all work properly, everything needs to be refueled and have at least 9 of each items in there at a time. And obviously I would recommend that you fill everything up every single time and make sure everything's always refueled. If you don't, there's going to be some issues with it, and you have to go back in manually to empty up the hopper systems if something messes up. It's not a huge deal, but obviously you want to make sure you're not already dealing with that kind of stuff, because the idea is to have basically a fully automatic system. So I think that pretty much covers everything that we need to know. If you have any other questions, obviously consider hitting me up in the comment section. Again, Discord's available. I might have missed something out here because there's quite a few things that I think I needed to run through, but I think I may have hit everything. Again, if you liked it, make sure you like and subscribe. I've got a Twitch channel which I'm going to be streaming on. I'm actually going to be building this on stream tomorrow, probably around 1 PM UK time, if you're watching this on the day it was uploaded. And I'll be building this in my world along with a nice decorative hut for it to go into. So make sure you tune into that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.